It was a cold morning when Jake woke up on a park bench, his body stiff from the hard surface, his stomach empty, his mind clouded with regret. Once he had dreams, he had a family, he had a job. But life had taken everything from him. He had made mistakes, and those mistakes had cost him dearly. Now he had nothing, just the clothes on his back and the weight of his past pressing down on his shoulders. He looked around as the city started to wake up, people walking past him without a second glance, rushing to work, sipping coffee, checking their phones as if he were invisible. He used to be one of them, a man with purpose, a man with ambition. But now he was just another face lost in the crowd. He sighed, pulling his thin jacket closer around him as a sharp wind cut through his bones. Jake had been homeless for months, surviving on scraps, finding shelter where he could, but every night was a reminder of how far he had fallen. He had no one to turn to, nowhere to go. The streets were his home now, but deep inside he still held on to a small flicker of hope, a tiny voice that whispered, "This is not the end. You can rise again." That day, he decided to do something different. Instead of begging, he would look for work, anything that could give him a chance to start over. He walked into a small diner, the smell of fresh coffee and pancakes making his stomach growl. He hesitated for a moment, then approached the owner, a kind-looking man with gray hair and tired eyes. "Sir, I don't have anything, but I am willing to work any job. Please just give me a chance," Jake said, his voice filled with desperation. The owner looked at him for a moment, then sighed. "You willing to wash dishes, clean floors, do anything, yes, sir?" Jake nodded without hesitation. "All right, start now." The man handed him an apron and pointed to the kitchen. Jake washed dishes, scrubbed floors, took out the trash for the first time in months. He felt useful again. He worked tirelessly, not complaining about the long hours or the aching in his back, because he knew this was his chance. At the end of the day, the owner handed him a small amount of money, enough for a meal, and told him to come back the next day if he was willing to keep working. That night, Jake sat on a park bench again, but this time he had food in his stomach, a small sense of accomplishment warming his heart. It wasn't much, but it was a start, and for the first time in a long time he felt like he had taken a step forward. Days turned into weeks. Jake continued working at the diner, proving himself to be reliable, hard-working, and honest. The owner started trusting him, giving him more responsibilities, eventually letting him help with customers as well. Jake saved every penny he could until one day he had enough to rent a small room in a shared apartment. It wasn't much, just 4 walls and a bed, but to him it was everything. It was a place to call his own, a place where he could start over one evening as he was cleaning tables. A well-dressed man walked in, looking around as if searching for something. Jake recognized him immediately. It was his old boss, the man who had once believed in him before his life had spiraled out of control. Jake hesitated for a moment, then approached him. "Sir, can I get you anything?" The man looked up at him and his eyes widened. "Jake, is that you?" Jake nodded, feeling a wave of emotions wash over him. "Yes, sir, it's me." His old boss looked him up and down, taking in his apron, the determination in his eyes, the strength he had regained. "I never thought I'd see you again, Jake. What happened to you?" "It's a long story, sir," Jake said with a small smile. "But I'm trying to turn things around." His old boss nodded, impressed by his resilience. "I might have an opportunity for you, Jake, something better than this, if you're willing to work for it." Jake's heart raced. This was it. This was the chance he had been waiting for. Days later, he found himself sitting in an office, wearing clean clothes, freshly shaved. His boss had given him an entry-level job. Nothing fancy but a step back into the professional world. He worked hard, proving that he was no longer the man who had lost everything. He was stronger, wiser, ready to fight for a better future. Months passed. Jake kept moving forward. He paid off old debts, reconnected with his family, even started helping others who were struggling on the streets because he knew what it felt like to have nothing, and he wanted to be the kind of person who lifted others up one evening. As he walked home, he stopped by the diner where it had all started. The place that had given him a second chance. He saw the owner still working tirelessly, and he smiled. "Walking inside, sir," he said, placing money on the counter. "I just wanted to say thank you for believing in me when no one else did. This is for you." The owner looked at him, eyes filled with pride. "Jake, you earned it now. Go make the most of your second chance." And as Jake stepped out into the night air, he looked up at the stars, knowing that he had come a long way from that cold park bench. He had hit rock bottom, but he had climbed his way back up one step at a time, because sometimes all it takes is one chance, one act of kindness, one decision to fight for a better tomorrow.